Work now. This is working for me. I don't have feedback. Can you hear me now? Are we live? Are we getting feedback, or is it just okay? Okay, then I'm going to start. Hello. Sorry about that. Isn't technology wonderful? Okay, we are in the fifth portion of the book of Exodus. Yitro, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law. A lot has happened in a very short period of time. Moses is born. Moses sees God in the burning bush. Moses takes the Israelites out of Egypt. There are 10 plagues, all of these things, and now they have gone into the wilderness. And yet this portion, the fifth portion of the book of Exodus, starts out with Jethro. Chapter 18. Jethro, priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his people, how the Lord had brought Israel out from Egypt. So Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after she'd been sent home, and her 2 sons, of whom one was named Gershom, that is to say, I have been a stranger in a foreign land, and the other named Eliezer, meaning the God of my father was my help, and he delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought Moses' sons and wife with him to the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed low and kissed him. Each asked after each other's welfare, and they went into the tent. This is a very personal story. A very personal part to start a chapter that everything that came before, plagues and moving in the wilderness and manna and how God worked with the Israelites, suddenly we have a very personal vignette of Moses. And Moses is obviously very excited to see his family and to see his father-in-law. Now, his father-in-law is famous because he's the one who had the staff. We've gone through that. And his father-in-law is also bringing his wife and sons. If you've been away from your family for any period of time, whether it's on a business trip or whether it's leading the Israelites through the desert, you've got to be very excited about seeing your family again. So suddenly there's this personal story, okay? And it goes on. Moses then recounted to his father-in-law everything that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced over all the kindness that the Lord had shown Israel when he delivered them from the Egyptians. Blessed be the Lord, Jethro said, who delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, and who delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, yes, by the result of their very schemes against the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to partake of the meal before God with Moses' father-in-law. Again, very interesting because Jethro is not an Israelite, nor has he ever wanted to be an Israelite. He was a priest in another religion, and yet he now believes that the God of the Israelites is a better God than all of the other gods. Remember the time we're in, there are a lot of gods. There were all the gods of Egypt. There are gods that they meet from trading, that all these other traders have their gods. The Phoenicians had their gods. The Assyrians had their gods. A lot of different groups had their gods. So there's a lot of idol worship, and now Jethro is very excited about the fact that the God of Moses is a God over all the other gods. It does not say what they talked about. It does not say what they did. It is a very family-oriented little passage of they had a sacrifice, the elders came, they had obviously a big dinner, and then Moses and Jethro and his wife and his children had an evening together. Because it's as we go on to chapter 13. The next day Moses sat as a magistrate among the people, while the people stood about Moses from morning until evening. But when Moses' father-in-law saw how much he had to do for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you act alone while all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Moses replied to his father-in-law, "It is because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, it comes before me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make known the laws and teachings of God." Moses has taken upon himself a burden that is almost impossible to bear. He is going to be the arbitrator of the entire Jewish people, whether it's someone stole a chicken, or whether it's what do we do about this or that, or whether it's any kind of dispute. Now, in later time, when they have the King Solomon, he also is the arbiter of big disputes. But Moses has no administrative strata to allow him to only work on the bigger things. So that's what this part of the passage is about. It's so, and Moses is so caught up in doing it that he doesn't realize that he needs to delegate. Moses' father, verse 17. Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing you are doing is not right. You will surely wear yourself out, and these people as well. For the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You represent the people before God. You bring the disputes before God, and enjoin upon them the laws and the teachings, and make known to them the way they are to go and the practices they are to follow. You shall also seek out from among all the people capable men who fear God, trustworthy men who spurn ill-gotten gains. Set these over them as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, tens, and let them judge the people at all times. Have them bring every major dispute to you, but let them decide every minor dispute themselves. Make it easier for yourself by letting them share the burden with you. If you do this, and God so commands you, you will be able to bear up, and all the people will go home unwearied." Moses heeded his father-in-law and did just as he said. Moses chose capable men out of all of Israel and appointed them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, and they judged the people at all times. The difficult matters they would bring to Moses, and all the minor matters they would decide themselves. Then Moses bade his father-in-law farewell, and he went his way to his own land. Okay. This is a setting up of an administration. You are now setting up a government, a way to solve disputes, delegate authority, get things done. The Israelites at the base of Mount Sinai, for all practical purposes, are still slaves. They've come out of Egypt. They are a rabble. They are just a group of people who are just absolutely still have to be in awe of what has happened to them. They were slaves for 400 years. Their fathers were slaves, their grandfathers, great-grandfathers, etc., etc. And now suddenly they're free. They've walked through the Red Sea. They've seen all these miracles, all the plagues, and now they stand at the bottom of the mountain, and they don't know what to do. They've already been complaining to Moses. They've complained about the manna. They've complained about the quails. They've acted like children, and there's no reason to believe they're still not acting like children. They still haven't suddenly grown up in the 2 months since they left Egypt, okay? Because at the beginning, why do I say 2 months? Because at the beginning of chapter 19, it says, "On the third new moon after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt." On that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai. New moon. A moon happens every 28 days, is 3 months. So it's 3 months since they left Egypt. Well, in 3 months, they've gone through a lot of different things, and they have to be able to absorb it. They have to be able to understand it. They have to be able to relate to it and figure out how it's going to work with what they know, because now everything that they knew is no longer valid. Everything that they knew is thrown out. It was left in Egypt, and now they're suddenly on their own, and they don't exactly know how to deal with that. So by putting together this hierarchy, this government, this group of delegates, they're putting in place a way of governing, but also a way of educating, so that when the people need to know something, they can go to different people to find out the answers, because not everyone knows the answer. So this person can say, one of these judges of the hundreds, 50s, and 10s can go and say, well, why don't you go see this guy? He knows more about that than I do. So they're setting up an educational system, they're setting up a governmental system, they're setting up all kinds of systems to be put in place. Little interesting asides. Moses is already speaking of the Word of God and already interpreting the laws, which they don't have yet. He's interpreting what God has already told him, so he's the main interpreter of what has to happen. So when he makes these judges, when he taps these guys to be the heads of the thousands, 50s, 10s, etc., he has to teach them. As we all know, if we've been through any kind of education, and everyone in the United States has certainly been through high school, if nothing else, and college, most of us, you go to different teachers to learn different things. So everybody eventually has to come to Moses, but they're going to ask him different questions concerning what they know and how they're going to act and react. Very interesting ideas of how to put together a civilization versus a rabble of people. I'm going to read some of the Midrash now. Parshat Yitro is a play in 3 acts, starting with Act 1, a backstory in Exodus. Exodus 18, Moses reunites with his family, notably his wise father-in-law Jethro, who rejoices at the miraculous reunion and then mentors his inexperienced son-in-law in the art of religious leadership. Jethro teaches Moses how to bless God, offer sacrifice, and administer justice among his restive and distressed people. That's like I just said. So now we go to chapter 19. Now we have things in place. Why is this in place? Because God is putting this in place because he knows he is about to put all this information out on the Jewish people, the 10 Commandments, and all the other commandments, and it has to be disseminated, and they have to understand it. And so he needs all these people in place so that they can explain it, so that people aren't going, I don't get this, I don't understand. They'll have people to go to so that they can understand what has just happened to them. Chapter 19. On the 3rd new moon after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai. Having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob and declare to the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. I think it's interesting in the Hebrew that they bore you on eagle's wings. I don't look at it that way. They were walked across the desert. They walked through the sea of reeds, and that must have been really interesting with the water on both sides, and all they've experienced all of these miracles. And again, we're talking about process. We're talking about if you've been through a lot in a very short period of time, catastrophe, because these are catastrophes, then how do you process it so that you can move forward? Moses came, now we're in chapter 7. Moses came and summoned the elders of the people and put before them all that the Lord had commanded him. All the people answered as one, saying, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses brought back the people's words to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, I will come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak to you, and so trust you ever after. Then Moses reported the people's words to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow. Let them wash their clothes. Let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people on Mount Sinai. You shall set bounds for the people round about, saying, beware of going up the mountain or touching the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be either stoned or shot. Beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they may go up on the mountain. That's a little scary. You shall set bounds for the people, beware of going up on the mountain, and then after the third day, when the ram's horn sounds, then you can go up on the mountain. Well, if I'm told not to go up on the mountain under the fear of death, am I ready to do that when the horn sounds? A little trepidation here. Moses came down from the mountain to the people and warned the people to stay pure, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day, do not go near a woman. On the third day, as morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud blast of the horn. And all the people who were in the camp trembled. Moses led the people out of the camp toward God, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain. Everybody hears this. This is such an important part of Jewish history and theology, and this is where it all comes together. Okay? At the foot of Mount Sinai, all the people hear this, and they all take their place at the foot of the mountain, and they are all about to hear the words of the Lord. As it said, the second act. Again, I'm going to do Midrash now. Act 2, chapter 19, describes a dramatic development in which the disorganized refugees assemble into a nation united at the base of a flaming mountain, ready to receive the explosive revelation directly from God. Okay, so here we go. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for the Lord had come down upon it in fire. The smoke rose like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The blare of the horn grew louder and louder. As Moses spoke, God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down upon Mount Sinai, on top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. The Lord said to Moses, go down, warn the people not to break through to the Lord to gaze, lest many of them perish. The priests also who come near the Lord must stay pure, lest the Lord break out against them. But Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, set bounds around the mountain and sanctify it. See, Moses got this, okay? So the Lord said to him, go down and come back together with Aaron, but let not the priests or the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break out against them. And Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. So, Moses and Aaron are going to go up the mountain. All the people stand there. All the people hear God in thunder. In the ram's horn, okay, you are a freed slave. You're illiterate. You don't know what's going on. You know that God has freed you. God brought these plagues. God is really one pretty incredible guy. God split the sea for you. God gave you all this manna, which, you didn't love. It was the same food every night, but you had your quail, and you come to this mountain, and now God is noise and smoke and fire. So you're seeing smoke and fire. You're feeling the trembling of the mountain. You're hearing the ram's horn. It's a cacophony of sound. Gotta be really afraid. I can't believe that they are not really, really afraid. They stand there because they know that if they run or if they go or if they do, this guy can cut them down. This guy can kill them. Because look at what he's done. He's already proven himself as an all-encompassing being who is stronger than certainly they are. And now they are going to stand there like children who are going to hear a lecture from Dad. Okay, a personal note. I was not the best child in the world. I certainly had my run-ins with my parents. And my dad would come into my room and he'd say, okay, we're going to do lecture number 26, and this is a lecture that I've said to you 25 times before, but you obviously didn't listen to it because I have to say it again. And he would tell me something that I should be doing or shouldn't have done or things like that. In a way, that's what God is doing here. He's talking to his children and he's giving them the information they need to live. As we read this, also understand there's no ritual in here. He doesn't tell them how to lay tefillin. He doesn't tell them about prayer shawls. He doesn't tell them about whether it's Shabbat you light a fire or don't light a fire or do any of these things. He doesn't tell them how to kill an animal. He doesn't tell them any of this stuff. He tells them how to live life. It's not ritual. Chapter 20. God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I am the Lord your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the thousandth generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. That's pretty tough. You're standing there, base of the mountain, ram's horn, fire, smoke, lots of sound, and the Lord says, you either believe in me and I will love you for the thousandth generation, or if you don't, I will visit guilt on you. Well, what choice do you have? This is not a free will moment. They're not going to turn away. He's saying, if you don't do what I want you to do, bad things are going to happen. This is, okay, in Midrash that goes much further than this. They talk about this passage as, he didn't mean it. I think he did mean it. I think God said, if you're not going to be, it's my way or the highway. I'm the God who brought you out of Israel, out of Egypt, and you're going to do it my way because I'm the one who did this for you. Now you're going to do this for me. You're going to live your lives this way because I'm telling you to. You may want to, you may not want to, but it's the right way to live. Again, talking to children, when you talk to children, you have to give them boundaries. Don't touch that. Don't put that in your mouth. The stove is hot. Without boundaries, they don't know how to grow up. They don't know how to have a moral compass. They don't know how to live a good life. These are the boundaries that God is giving us. He's not saying, hey, here's your chance to do it. He's saying, this is what you need in order to live and to thrive individually and as a people. I'm going to go through the rest of it and then we'll talk about the Midrash. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not clear one who swears falsely by his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So it's very important to me, the Lord, so I'm making it important for you. Honor your father and your mother, that you may long endure on the land that the Lord your God is assigning to you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female slave, or his ox or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. 10 Commandments. How to live your life. No ritual. Nothing what to wear, nothing what to put on your feet, nothing of how to do your fields, none of that stuff. How to live your life. How to treat your neighbors with dignity and respect. How to treat your parents with dignity and respect. How to be a civilization and not just a rabble. All the 15. All the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the blare of the horn and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they fell back and stood at a distance. You speak to us, they said to Moses, and we will obey. But let not God speak to us, lest we die. Moses answered the people, be not afraid, for God has come only in order to test you, and in order that the fear of him may ever be with you, so that you do not go astray. So the people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. The Lord said to Moses, thus shall you say to the Israelites, you yourselves saw that I spoke to you from the very heavens. With me, therefore, you shall not make any gods of silver, nor shall you make for yourselves any gods of gold. Make for me an altar of earth, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your sacrifices of well-being, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. And if you make for me an altar of stones, do not build it of hewn stones, for by welding your tool upon them you have profaned them. Do not ascend my altar by steps, that your nakedness may not be exposed upon it. Okay, so Midrash here, because that's a lot of stuff. Chapter 20 is the climactic moment, not only of the Torah, but of all Jewish life. Indeed, the 10 Commandments have shaped human culture across time and space in ways that we cannot even fathom. The coda of this final act is a call to worship. God instructs Moses to teach the people how to construct the Lord's altar. What other response is possible after what they've heard and seen? Given the Parsha's literary structure of background development and climax, it's tempting to skim the opening sections and cut to the great part of chapter 20. But doing so would diminish the power of the Parsha to address us today. Sinai is not the beginning of our relationship with God, nor is it the end. It is the defining moment, yet the preparation for revelation is a more relevant model for our own meeting with God. In chapter 18, Jethro observes with alarm how Moses sits before the people from dawn till dusk, instructing them in the ways of God. You will surely be worn out by this practice, and do no favors for yourself and your people, he warns Moses. Moses frets that he has no choice. The people want divine instruction, and he's the only qualified judge. But Jethro persists. Train a cadre of teachers, and God will be with you. Jethro's counsel is sensible, yet is also counterintuitive. If the role of Moses is to bring people close to God, and if he is the most qualified teacher, then why shouldn't he do it himself? Jethro's insight is that this monopolization of spiritual leadership actually distances the people from God, since it makes Moses their exclusive mediator. This passage demonstrates the necessity of training a generation of religious leaders. No individual teacher, not even Moses, can suffice to teach the ways of God. It is this basic task of education, of learning from his mentor and creating structures of justice for his people, that sets the stage for revelation. The task of Moses is to help the people sift the deposits of the living so that they will be ready for Sinai. This is the basis of the Jewish people. Everyone in Judaism is educated. The whole idea of a bar mitzvah is to read from the Torah, run a service, and give a Devar Torah, a discussion of the Torah portion, a midrash, so to speak. We are the only religion that does that. In all other religions, a priest or a figure tells them what they are supposed to hear. They sit there and they absorb it, and they say, okay, very good, thank you. There's no educational component. Unless you want to be a priest or a Buddha or one of those in any religion, that is what has to happen. In Judaism, everyone is supposed to learn because everyone is supposed to teach. The word rabbi means teacher. And so we are all teachers. We're all supposed to teach. I am not a rabbi, but I am doing this for this exact reason and this exact purpose. Let's go back to chapter 19. Chapter 19 exposes Moses and the people of Israel to a shocking array of sights and sounds that break the heavy lid of habit and allow access to the hidden treasure that permeates all of reality. The pretext of revelation is also revelation, not of words or wisdom, but of the vastness and power of God and nature. Once Moses and the people have experienced the fire, the smoke, the shofar blast, the bright light, and the ionized air of revelation, only then can they discern the voice. Perhaps this is ancient history, a stage through which we need to pass on our way to revelation, but no further significance. I don't believe that. Neither did the ancient rabbis. We all talk in the Haftorah, not the Haftorah, the Haggadah, that we are all standing at Sinai. The whole idea of this is we are, again, participants to go through the meeting of God, to prepare for the revelation. We are as if it says in the Haggadah, we are to be as if we are standing at Sinai. It is across the ages that we are all supposed to understand how God came to us as a people. Everyone heard the words of God. It is not God going to one person and saying, hey, this is the deal, and that person then broadcasts it to everyone. It is God went to everyone. Another midrash. There's 1,000 midrashes for this. Some of them really go into the realm of science fiction, where the mountain goes up and it goes over the people and the people are afraid, and I'm not going to do any of that. That's to be a fantasy. These things are much more about what the covenant was and how the people accepted it and how we have to look at it today in the 21st century. The covenant ceremony at Sinai is the pivot on which the rest of the Torah turns. Everything that precedes Sinai in the Torah's narrative leads up to it. Everything that comes afterwards in the Torah, the Bible, and Judaism as a whole follows from the fact of covenant and works out its consequences for Israel and the world. Your life and mine are shaped by the accounts presented in this week's parsha. I would like to suggest two major ways in which that is so. First, the covenant established Judaism as more than a religion alone. The creator of heaven and earth for reasons we are not told in the Torah and will likely never understand, wants human partners to help complete the work of creation. What an idea. What an idea. It goes back to Genesis. God made heaven and earth. God made all the animals. God made all this stuff. God made humans. So God made something that wasn't God. It was something beyond God. So he created something, whereas he is everything and all things and all present and stuff. He made something that wasn't God, a non-God item. Heaven and earth, all the animals, all the humans. Why? Why would he do that? Except to have partners to complete the work that he wanted to do. He needed more than just himself. But he's God. Even God needs helpers. And as part of earlier chapters, chapter 18 and 19, in this passage, the humans also need help. That's why we have the judges. That's why we have all this stuff, this administrative arm, so that we can all understand how we fit into the creation and the covenant with God. There's another midrash that says, you would not have been created if God didn't need you for something. We've all heard that. Well, this is where it comes from, where we are all at Sinai. Even now, today, we're all at Sinai. We are all learning at the base of the mountain so that we can help finish what God started. Human beings are called to assist in the work of making it better. This is why God came down for the meeting at the mountaintop. The revelation at Sinai to which Israel is summoned does not pertain to God's essence, which remains hidden from mortal eyes and minds, but to the gift of Jewish, and by extension human, obligation. All the earth is mine, God declares, and you shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation for me. It says in Exodus. If God had wanted to establish a religion at Sinai, there would have been no need for a kingdom or a nation. A church or a sect would have been sufficient. The Torah aims at far more than collective belief or individual enlightenment. Its point, witness the content of the Ten Commandments, is nothing less than a different kind of world composed of just and compassionate societies. The task of creating that world, as Moses put in Deuteronomy, requires the love of God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. Everything that each of us can bring to the work is needed. Learning and experience, parenting and profession, art and science, knowledge and wisdom. What is more, the work requires achievement that is more than the sum of individual parts. The covenant demands that we fulfill it together and needs the best that we can accomplish together, including the difficult work of interpreting the Torah's meaning in diverse and ever-changing circumstances. Torah requires, in a word, community. That's why all the different judges and all the different administrative people all had strengths and weaknesses, and they would all work together to form, to have a strength overcome a weakness. It is striking that the covenant binds the children of Israel to one another at the very same moment that it binds them to God. So important. We are a people. We're not a rabble anymore. We are a kingdom of priests. We are a kingdom, a nation, and a religion, all at the same time. It unifies the Jewish people as a people, not as just slaves coming out of Egypt, not as just guys on the street corner. We are now a people. We are held together by a bond to God and a bond to each other that is bigger than we are. A people is formally established at Sinai, not only a faith. Neither bond is conceivable in Torah terms without the other. That people includes both those who are standing here with us this day before the Lord our God and those who are not with us this day. Each generation of the children of Israel accepts the responsibility for promises made by ancestors long ago. as Moses fulfilled the promise made to Joseph by his brothers that his bones would be taken out of Egypt by their descendants. It also accepts responsibility for the children of Israel not yet born. No generation, ours included, can do the work of covenant well without the assurance that those who follow will pick up where it leaves off. For what we see around us generally looks like wilderness. The promised land lies ever ahead, sometimes out of view. Without hope of our children reaching it someday, or their children, we would lack the strength to go forward. Teach our children, because we can only go so far. And as we get older, and I'm getting older, we realize that we can only do so much. And we have to leave it up to our children to do more and to move things forward. Judaism should be understood as a civilization, the culture of a people, rather than as a religion alone. The work of Judaism required not only synagogues, but communities. Make room inside Judaism and Jewish communities for Jews who have lost faith in God as they understood faith and God. He also wanted to expand the scope of collective Jewish activity to include all the areas of Jewish culture that contribute to the covenant's fulfillment: history, literature, language, folk customs, social structure, home ritual, and last but not least, Zionism. The building of the society guided by Jewish civilization in service of covenant. The God of all the earth wants all the earth transformed and regulates religion as a means to that end. Little attention is paid in those chapters to beliefs as such. The thrust of the Ten Commandments is almost entirely ethical in nature, and the principles set forth are quickly followed in the next Parsha, Mishpachim, by translation into the concrete specificity of the law. We'll do that next week. This is the stuff of community, of society, of a better world built on one community at a time. Moses' work as a prophet is to take God's words to the people and the people's words to God. The assent of Israelite individuals who would not have been enough, it still isn't. All the people answered as one, saying, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do." Religion is needed, but more than religion. That's what we must do so the covenant can proceed. That is tonight. I thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you and seeing you next week.